Kia ora koutou, Sarah Ritchie here, coming to you today on a beautiful midwinter's day here in Auckland, New Zealand. I'd like to share my thoughts with you on young folk getting into account management and picking what kind of agency to join when there's so much choice out there. For example, did you know that there are over 28 different kinds of agencies, and that can be mind-boggling when you're trying to figure out which one's going to be right for you. So it's easier if we start with if we break them down into 5 different broad categories. We have advertising, we've got media, design, experiential, and PR. And they're all quite different, and I would call them the 5 very distinct career pathways, because once you get into them, it's very difficult, depending on the stage of career that you're at, to make a crossover. I call it a crossover, to make a crossover between one career path and another. So it's really important that you get it right. And often the best way to choose is based on your personality and what you really enjoy doing. So for example, advertising works with paid media. It works with advertising. So your objectives might be mass media like TV, radio, out of home, or what we call below the line media, which is, could be anything digital, print, social. But essentially you're dealing every day with creatives, and you're brainstorming, you're strategizing, but generally you are the facilitator between your client and your agency team. So sometimes there's not a lot of strategy involved, but you are working in a very creative environment. Design works on predominantly below the line channels, so there's not a lot of mass media work going on, TV, radio, out of home. You're mostly working on maybe print, digital, social, and this is just very, very broadly generalized there, but you're working with creatives. It's not as much of a high buzz typically environment that you would find in an advertising agency. Nevertheless, still very, very creative. Media, if you go into a media agency as an account manager, you're tending to do planning and buying of media, and you're working with media owners to place that media. A lot of strategy work involved, perhaps not when you start out, especially as you get on a little bit, but you're not working with creatives typically. So unless you're part of a media media department that's within an advertising agency, or maybe if you're lucky within a design agency, you typically won't be interacting with creatives directly. You'll be receiving that creative material from a partner agency or from your client directly. Experiential is very, very similar to account management within an advertising environment. You're still working on very similar channels. You could be having a campaign that involves print and social and digital. But what's really unique about experiential is that you are dealing with a live component of almost every project that you're involved with. So it's a crossover between traditional account management and event management. And, working within that live environment and working with people in a live environment, it can be a really challenging, full-on type of role. But there's a buzz that goes along with that none of the other types of agencies can offer, because of that event and that live component. What you will probably find though is, again, you're not dealing with creatives directly, but you will be able to put a lot of your ideas into practice right from a very young age. A very junior stage and above. PR, again, different again. That is working with a client's owned and earned media. So owned media are things like websites, social media channels, and earned media is what traditional PR does, where they try to give you as much exposure as they can through media outlets and influencer marketing campaigns and the like. Now PR again is one very similar to experiential, that you will be able to get involved in strategy right from a very junior level, but again, you won't be working with creatives. So it's really important to try and figure out which personality type you have and which environment that you want to move into. Just one thing to be really mindful of is when you pick an agency that is very niche, and this is usually when it's based on a particular channel. So if you go into a social media agency or a digital agency where social media and digital are channels within the overall marketing mix, what you're doing is you're going into a niche environment, and that can be really difficult to then move into a broader or say an advertising agency that deals with a broad range of channels. So in some ways, unless you are truly passionate about that particular channel, I would suggest maybe waiting until a little bit later in your career before you specialize. But that's completely up to you. And the other good thing is, if you don't like your career choice, change it. I mean, we're living in a time where you don't have to stay in a particular job for 20 years. Certainly here in New Zealand, our marketplace is such that, if you really don't like your job, if you're really unhappy, change it. My advice to you, though, if you're going to do that, change it earlier rather than later. The sooner that you figure out which pathway that you want to take, the better. The better it will be for you, and the better it will be for your long-term career.